and we have been working for the last 15 years together. And we have our background is first of all in critical development studies. It's a graduate program on development studies from a multi and interdisciplinary perspective. And the other main background is feminist and gender studies. And we are sociologists, anthropologists, political scientists, historians, economists. We have also some people in agronomy and philosophy. So we have a collective academic identity, and we define ourselves as doing research, teaching, master and doctorate programs, and we are oriented to understand and explain social, political, economic, and cultural factors facilitating or constraining development paths, in plural, toward democratic, equal, sustainable societies in a globalized world. So these are our collective goal, big goal. And then we have a focus mainly on Bolivia and Latin America. And all these specific subjects are linked to or are ingrained in this more micro dimension. It's important to think that this collective identity that we combine with individual works is something very implicated in a cultural and historical characteristic of Bolivia. Bolivia is a country with a very organized civil society with a long tradition. So everybody is part of at least one organization in civil society. And indigenous organizations, labor organizations, neighborhood organizations, feminist organizations, child organizations. So it's something that is common. It's something that has a long history back into colonial periods, through republic, during the 20th century, and with a very contentious relationship with government. And so this idea that citizenship is about individual rights but also collective rights, and we have to fight for our rights through collective organization. So it's something that is part of our culture, our history. We understand in this group that we are in a global world, and there is dynamic effects that have a significant diversity among regions and countries, and mainly, I would say, that we are very aware of these differences within regions and within countries. And our specific subjects, in this case, children, childhood, women, gender, and other, are framed taking into account these structural conditions: class, gender, ethnicity, and we understand that and we also struggle to combine symbolic and material dimension and tensions in these continuing processes. So I have the feeling that in some countries, and in Bolivia in particular, the academic research is much more embedded in public discussion, much more than I felt when I did my PhD in United States. So academic research is much more linked to public spaces, and this has a long history. So when Bourdieu came up with this claim for public sociology in 2004, it was like an idea that resonated very well to what we have been doing. So he poses it in this way, as that it's a claim that what we do within university, we must be linked or more responsible or more responsive to civil society worries, debates, demands, problems. And so university has a duty to social organization, grassroots organization, that has a duty to respond to the challenges societies are facing. So that is how we understand our work at the university. So this shapes how we do research, how we try to come up with explanations, comprehension, and what we are aiming to, or what we are trying to do. First of all, comprehend and explain social dynamic and results oriented to different publics. Academics, for sure. There is a public, an inside public, but also civil society and policy making. And what are the sources for framing research questions and building theoretical understandings? No doubt academic literature, but not only, and maybe not mainly, but also social needs, public debates, emerging tensions and interpretations in society. And that poses many challenges for methodology. How we research, how we build concepts, how we teach, how we communicate advances and results. So what we have been doing is how to build this knowledge, but not only oriented to students or to our peers, but it's a very challenging objective. So in the area of women and children's rights, as I was saying, this is a group that has been working for at least 15 years. We began from more a gender perspective and a feminist perspective. Most of people in this group are feminists and have been also playing a militant role in Bolivia for women's rights. For example, we were very active in passing the first law against violence in the 90s. And then, what are our research subjects? Persisting inequalities. That is something that we are very interested. So, old and new social dynamics, we want to understand old and new social dynamics perpetuate unequal access to resources like food, housing, health, education, basic services, social security, access to information to make decisions, institutional support to participate in public life, how institutional support actually is not something that is homogeneous or get to all the people, work and be able to live their differences. And women children, elderly, disabled people are groups, are categories that are understood as with specific disadvantages in these social relations. And we are trying to understand social mechanisms playing across different social spaces and social relations. So social spaces we are thinking of, for example, in a more local space, families, labor market, public debate, state, community, but also in a more local in the term of municipal, departmental, national, and how Bolivia in Latin America, Bolivia in relation in other regions and relations. So then we come up with this concept, the concept of care and sustainability. And this concept, we find it very useful. And where does this concept come from? It is in the ILO, it is in UN, but it is not the only source for this concept. These are different roots and meanings, and one of them is this new concept that came up in Bolivia, Ecuador, and other countries, that is vivir bien. I don't know how to translate that. That could be well-being, but it's something different. So in this concept, vivir bien, it comes from indigenous communities. They say, what we want is not more development. We want something broader, different. We want to live more harmonically within our community. We want to live more harmonically with nature. We want to ground our living in values as solidarity, cooperation, etc. We want to understand development not only in a material way, but also a spiritual way. So there is questions of cultural difference, there is questions of a more ecological way, critique about a mainlyhood approach, etc. But also this concept it comes from feminist theory, different critical perspectives. So in a certain sense, what we see is that some concepts arise from different sources, from different regions, and they resonate. So there is a space. It's not something that comes from just one place and is imported or exported. And they resonate and they develop. So how we worked with that concept? Understanding care as an activity, as a work, because it implies effort, it implies time, it implies knowledge, skills that is developed in relations, in different spaces. Everybody needs help, needs care, needs care. We give care, we receive care, and it can be done within family, within community, within society, and it is shaped, structured by economic forces. It must be financed, but also cultural factors. We have different understanding of taking care. Who needs care? What much care? What type of care? Who should be giving the care? Who should be receiving the care? It implies allocating time as a scarce resources in a daily basis. So it is shaped through time, who is responsible or not, and It is experienced by children, by women, men. It depends how society understands that. It can be understood as we live there as a private matter, not a public one. So it must be resolved. This is the mainstream thinking. It must be resolved within family or within community, with market, doing their job to whom can pay, but who cannot pay doesn't have any care because the state doesn't think they are responsible for that. So care, as it is organized, is scaled up from daily life to more systemic levels. So it gets to system of protection or protection system, how social policies are designed, what is the role of state, market, community, and family understood. So the usefulness of this concept for our work is that it is related to citizenship rights. It is or can be understood or not, or it can be organized as a public good or a private good. It helps us to have a critical approach to family, parenting, maternity and paternity, to childhood, the way care is understood in different settings from different groups of population, depending on class, depending on gender, depending on ethnicity, and many other factors. Childhood is actually what we understand by childhood is pretty much shaped by the understanding, the meaning of care. We can have a critical approach of the divide between public and private. We have a critical approach on life courses. Also, that is, care is pretty much shaped differently depending on the ages of children, but it's not something homogeneous. It depends on class and time use, how they distribute time. It is also related to paid and non-paid work, gender and generation relations and rights, the way care is organized and who access, and if it is adequate or not. From the point of view of the families, the children, the caregivers, it is a type of mechanism, a very powerful mechanism to reproduce intergenerational inequality and also gender inequality. It is related to children exclusion of not only adequate protection, but also opportunities. And we can see how different societies shape the organization of work, and what is the role played by the state, community, market, family in providing care and provision. So what we have done with this, for example, in one of our research, what we've done is going to some neighborhoods and making, first of all, a research, a survey, and then we use time use method to understand how, first of all, they understand care, what are their needs, what are their demands, and if needs and demands match. What we have seen is, for example, since care is so much understood naturally, it's very naturalized, as a private matter. Some families, and I say also children and their parents, don't see the possibility of having institutional support for the family, for them to do this work. And the debate at some point, I think it is changing, the debate at some point was, if you try to make a claim for having a more proactive role of the state in giving more support, you are claiming that family is not the main space for care. So this was in the debate. So what is the role of university when we saw this kind of thing? But then we have other sources, because we did this research going through different classes. Then we see that privileged classes, families, buy this service in the market. They buy it through domestic labor. They buy it through pet services to take care, and then women are going out and father are going out to work and supplying that in that way. What do the families in underprivileged groups? First of all, they are transferring this care for the same children. Is one strategy. The other strategy is, this is the main strategy. The other strategy is bringing the kids, young children, to their work in very unsafe conditions, and there are many others. So we can see the different strategies of taking care and being cared of. Between social groups, communities, etc. But then we also can we were able to understand what is their demands. What would they like to? They would. What would be the? Are they satisfied with that? Is that okay, or it's not okay? And then we build on this understanding. We use different methodologies. First of all, this kind of more qualitative, talk to people, doing a time use table, interviewing, organizing discussions, etc. But also we use statistics. So we were trying to see how, in a more macro level, actually what is the role of state-community market. So we can saw, for example, that 3% of young children have access to public services of care. And we saw that another percentage actually are providing this care through market, and another through community. But within all this, trying to combine these different levels, we try to picture the problem. So, if our aim is not to do research and to get to build a knowledge that is referred only to our main community, how should we do that? How should we do that? So it poses many questions. One of them is, what is the role of university or academic knowledge in promoting democratic public spaces in order to promote, well, the children's well-being and the women's rights? This is, I would like to hear if this is something that is really important for us. So led us to a second question. What should be the relationship between university, civil society organizations, social movements, policymakers, in the different roles that we play in teaching, in researching, in public policy advocacy, and public opinion formation. So what were our strategy of, for example, researching? Besides doing all these surveys and timetable use and collecting data and doing some statistics, and we also organize like 300 meetings with different groups of society, different grassroots organizations, union organizations, paid domestic labor, policymakers at the local level, medium level, national level, to discuss, to put back to them what we were finding, what were our concerns, our data, what we have found, what they think about it, and putting that in discussion. That was one of our strategies. The other, teaching. How can we do that? If we just teach our master and doctorate program, we will not get to other groups. So we found a way. It's not the only, but it's one way that we have been doing that for a long time. What we call diplomados. Diplomados is a type of course that doesn't imply having an academic background. So, for example, in this course about care, in this diploma about care, we organized, we made four times. We could combine in a group the child groups, the labor, the child who works and is organized, policymakers at the municipal level, NGOs, technicians, another teachers or another researchers interested in the subject, students. Our master students also was in this diplomado, and we have a space, a more structured space to discuss these issues, discuss different issues related to care as our umbrella concept. Public policy advocacy, many other ways of doing that, and public opinion formation. And also, all this oblige us to write in different codes. We not just write in academic language. We write in more journalistic. So I have a column, my colleagues too, and we try to do small notes and be part of it, and or put some other formats. We made a video with the voice of people and the discussion we had, and this kind of thing. But still, we face many challenges. No? So the next question would be, what are the challenges to advance toward a proactive role of university in building democratic public spaces? It's not an easy thing to do, because what we have in Bolivia is, even though we have this very strong civil society, most of the public space are not democratic. It's a different thing. Sometimes it's more cooperative social space, sometimes it is structured in a more clientelistic way, or more, there is power relations in these public spaces. So our role is not just get into, it is how we can contribute to make them more democratic. And Another important question is what is the importance of international networks of university in this matter? What is? How it is important to what we are doing in Bolivia. So, with this introduction, I would like to propose these questions to discuss.